The Evolution Security Podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the EvoSec podcast. I am Eric Davis, and I'm joined by my twin brother, Aaron Davis. Good evening, brother. How are you doing?
Good evening. I'm doing great. Glad to be here on another great episode that we have with Cliff Byerly. Man, he's got some amazing stuff to offer our listeners and some very unique training that I was real excited to hear about during the interview.
Yeah, and I can't agree more. You know, Cliff has got an incredible take on pressure testing and just some slightly different philosophies that I think is definitely welcome. And I think you and I are going to try to get to his class here soon that he mentions on the interview. I'm looking forward to that big time.
Oh, yeah.
Wherein I'd like to mention real quick, you've heard me speak very highly of my good friend, Ryan McLean. You know, all the help that he gave me in my garage gym during the COVID craziness when I was still out at Washington State. You know, man, I'll never forget the help that Ryan provided me. And, you know, we did a lot of weapons-based stuff too, but man, the help that he gave me in jiu-jitsu has definitely shaped me for sure. But I'd like to say a congratulations. Ryan was promoted to black belt this last weekend under Will Haggerty of Jiu-Jitsu Dynamics. Man, congratulations, Ryan. Brother, you deserve it.
Congratulations.
Well, Aaron, I think it's about time we go ahead and roll this interview with Cliff Byerly.
Hey, everybody. We would like to welcome Cliff Byerly. How you doing, Cliff? Thanks for coming on.
Oh, I'm doing outstanding, exciting, guys. Thanks for having me.
Man, it's been a little while. We've been working with you to try and get you on. Eric's been excited, telling me all about you and what you're up to. So it's great to have you on here. It's great to have the virtual hangout here over the internet. Now, what we would like to do for our audience that may not know who you are, it'd be awesome to get some bio information from you. Why don't you give us a little bit of info?
Yeah, sure. Cliff Byerly, retired LAPD, retired Marine Corps. I did 23 years in the Marine Corps, 12 active, 11 in the reserves. Most all of which was with First Reconnaissance, and then I went to Fourth Force, and then LAPD, patrol, crime suppression, gangs, narcotics out in South Central Los Angeles, where a lot of my law enforcement course experience comes from. Started wrestling when I was 6 years old, 54 now, so that plays a big game, part of my jiu-jitsu game. Black belt under Rodrigo Pinheiro out of San Antonio. Started doing jits in 2000 time frame under Chris Brennan at Next Generation. Kind of bounced around because of house moves, but took me like 20 years. Got my black belt about 3 years ago now, coming up, and God, that's pretty much it. Now I run Country Combatives out of Kerrville, Texas. Just trying to build more capable human beings, basically.
Rock on, God's country there in Texas.
Oh, it's gorgeous here.
Yeah, Cliff, we were just talking pre-show about the beautiful the beautiful state of California. But, you know, we're glad you got out of there so you could live in free country there in Texas.
I couldn't afford gas for my F-250 out there at $8 a gallon of diesel.
I thought those were outlawed there.
God, I wouldn't.
I know they have been now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised the way they're going out there.
Well, just a little side note, that's part of the problem that the media and especially the current administration doesn't want to talk about, is that part of the supply chain issue is the fact that now in California, if your semi truck is over 10 years old, it has to be an electric diesel.
Wow.
Excuse me, an electric.
I heard that.
Yeah, so they end up having to ship whatever trucks are still legal. They like change out at the border of California with trucks that can't go into California to pick up all the goods and cart them off to the rest of the United States. I mean, California is where a bulk of the goods of the United States comes through. So,
Wow.
Kinda
Well, I guess
crazy.
more business for the ports here in Texas and Florida then.
yep, absolutely.
Well, and interesting enough, yes, there has been increase for those ports, 100%. Well, when you hold off ships and then start fining them for being out of dock, I mean, they're going to find other ways to get their goods into the United States. We could go on and on about that stuff. We're not a political show. Every now and we get political, but yeah, there's certainly governmental reasons for the supply chain issues, and it drives me up the wall being a student of economics to hear all these people say it's just a demand issue. BS.
Yeah.
It's partially a demand issue. But again, it's 100% supply issues due to COVID restrictions and lower employment from people that have gotten used to getting checks. All that stuff it's trickled down, which they don't like to talk about, but trickled down to the supply chains.
Well, in LA, you can even go into a business now without your COVID card.
Yep. Yeah, and
Dang.
I would be remiss, however, we were talking again pre-show. California is a beautiful state, wonderful people, pretty much for the most part, great people. San Diego is one of my favorite places on earth, great place. And so, yeah, we don't want to poo-poo on California individually. It's just the politics.
Yep.
Well, with that said, Cliff, I would count you among those that we both follow and we gain knowledge from. I would count you as one of the preeminent experts in combatives with weapons. So I kind of like to segue into a discussion about that. So I would say that some of the coolest things that I've been seeing from what you do is your enclosed space work. Like you get these two connexes, and man, that to me though, I know that's got to be a little bit of torture for people that aren't used to doing that. Would you say that's correct?
Oh yeah, that definitely brings in some stress factor because most courses it's all open space drills. Those connexes, when I had them set up, I had them drop 43 inches apart because the average home hallway in America is 45 inches. So I took a couple inches away because in a real fight, 2 inches seems like a big deal. But yeah, so like that confined space, I don't know anybody else who's really doing much confined space work, but it's interesting when you go, like we do the drills, the first few reps, like out in my, basically my front yard, open space, have plenty of movement. Then we repeat the drills between the connex boxes, and even their draw stroke changes.
Hey guys, real quick, let me back y'all up for the audience and this podcast host. What is a connex?
It's just a big, it's a shipping container.
Okay.
It's just a shipping container that's all those ones you see sitting on a ship to be offloaded. That's a Connex box.
Oh wow.
Well, Aaron, I'm sorry. I certainly wasn't laughing you as my twin brother. We don't beat up on each other. But I'm sitting here with Cliff. We're both veterans, and I'm just assuming it's bad sometimes. I make assumptions. Sorry about that, Aaron.
No problem. So that's kind of a military thing, huh?
Yeah, it's just shipping containers. I got 1, 2, 3. I got 5 of them out here. that I use them for
Wow.
different things. So yeah, it's but like that 42 inches between the boxes. I have like horse stall mats down, basically for grappling between them. But yeah, that 43 inches even changes people's draw stroke. Like all your like a lot of the theory that people brought to the day, it just turns into that theory because it doesn't work. It's an epic fail for most people. So
Well,
yeah,
Cliff, I will comment on that because, you know, I'm a multi-time alum. So is Aaron of ECQC. All that work has been in open space. Well, I take that back when my 2-on-1 with Cecil Birch and Rich Daniels was up against a car partially. So I guess I did experience that there. So I think I'm sitting there thinking, Aaron, maybe when we're going out to do Carl Wren's Simunitions course out there, maybe we can try to make it out to Cliff's and get after it in those Connexes. We need it.
That would be amazing.
Awesome.
yeah, they because like the space is also, if you really think about the 43-inch space, that's also like your average space between two parked cars.
Yep.
And like you watch the videos, and one of the drills I do is basically the good guy's facing the box and the bad guy's behind him, and he shoves him in the box or into the wall of the box as if he's getting into the car. Now, lack of awareness, whatever is going on, he gets shoved like kind of in the car. Now you got to turn and deal with whatever's there. So
yeah, definitely some other problems. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with these human laboratories that we all know now, such as ECQC and any force on force, those human laboratories, and then there's this human laboratory that you're exposing us and the listeners to. It's just a whole other universe that people could work in. Man, I'm fascinated with that.
yeah, I tell you, it changes a lot of people's thought processes about their capabilities. Because it's like everything it works in a mat room, or it works in open space, and then when you can't disengage, it's just like I've had a lot of people I hear I would just shoot them, and then we run knife drills, and now they can't run anywhere, and they can't even get their gun out. They have to deal with the threat and earn that draw and shot. So the confined space is something. If you're serious about like self-defense, it's something everybody should find a way to work.
Well, and it's just like inside of a vehicle. I've definitely experienced scenarios or evos inside of vehicles. It is absolutely different, to use Aaron's term, it's a different universe. I mean, it becomes a 360 degrees fighting space, and knowing how to use that space properly can make the difference between life or death for sure. And I definitely like what you're doing. There's also something you do where you essentially drop I don't know if it's a pillowcase maybe. I don't know what it is that you're.
That's a parachute rigger bag.
Oh, right on. Okay.
That's from a reserve. That's a reserve shoot bag that I had made. I've used it. It was actually used for bagging people in Iraq.
Oh,
and
nice.
now I use it for training. But I used that for like my red zone knife defense courses, and but I've done it with handgun stuff too, because when you take away like a sensory like vision, you see like true behavior because they can't game where the threat is coming from. The hood comes off, they have to like figure out the threat and respond to it. So you see like true kind of self-induced stress, true human behavior, like moving backwards, and then they have to figure out how to get angle off to deal with the threat, and that takes away, I do that with a lot of the guys. I would just shoot them and they never get their gun out of the holster.
Okay, so what we're talking about here, and again, I'm kind of getting blown away here. What you're talking about is covering someone up and totally disorienting them before they have to go through a scenario. So it literally is even though they're in a simulated environment, it's as simulated as it can get, being totally taken off guard.
Yes, it's basically what it is a hood that I drop over their head, and this works really well. This is one drill I do between the connexes box. So I'll put the good guy in the middle of the boxes with a bag over his head, and then you have a bad guy on each end, but only one of them can attack. So when the hood comes off, he have to orientate himself to a position where he can kind of track both of them, but he has to figure out who's a threat and who's not. So in that creates like really good true human behavior to a threat. A lot of people has a game plan, but when the threat, because when you take away the vision, they can't game it because they don't know where the threat is at. So when you take away their vision by placing a hood over their head, and now you have, well, is it subject A or is it subject B that's going to be attacking me? Is it a gun or a knife? And what is my distance? So if I'm within that 2 arms reach, most of them, they realize real soon they're safer by closing the distance and going hands on, doing some kind of either back takes or arm entanglements, and then earning the draw and shot. In open space where they can like kind of game the threat, they have all their 5 senses, then you don't get a true threat response, threat stimulus out of them like you do by putting a bag over their head.
Man, that's brilliant.
Well, and what I would add,
I
go ahead.
love
Aaron.
it.
I'm sorry, buddy. Keep
I
cutting.
was just saying, I love it, man. That's cool.
I think to me, what it feels like, or as I imagine it, Cliff, is you're not only in a deficit, you're in a negative deficit.
Oh yeah, I mean it's about as close as you can get to a true ambush assault without experiencing a true ambush assault.
And again, that having been put in that novel real ambush is going to benefit people big time if they ever were faced, God forbid, that their awareness has failed, that they're at that point. But again, it can happen to anybody.
Anybody, anybody can, be the windshield and not, or the bug basically. So, it's one of those deals where the brain really doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a scenario that's real.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you can put them in as realistic experience as you can, God forbid if it happens for real, they're just a little bit more prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is something you mentioned regarding folks that, haven't experienced any kind of simulation like that. I was like, man, I'll just shoot them. I'll just this, that, and the other. And again, just like you mentioned, most people can't even get their weapon into the fight, in-fight weapons access. So that's great, Cliff.
Yeah, here's just a little bit of anecdotal information on that line, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it's still germane in that how so many people think that they're, hey, even me, right? I probably assume too much about my skills, right? Because I can run a gun and I've had some simulation training, etc. But it was funny that, on Facebook, I'm amazed at the junk that shows up in my feed that hundreds of thousands of people buy.
Oh yeah.
And it was, I'm not saying, guys, that shoulder holsters are terrible all around. Depends on the mission. Yep. So, but I just mentioned, I said, okay, who's actually using this, and how fast are you getting in that? Is it taking you? Have you tested it? Is it taking you 5 seconds to get it out? And this, internet warrior said, the gun's out when the hair's up on the neck. Whatever, brother.
Yeah.
Whatever. That means you have something fully in front of you, and it's just ridiculous.
I had
That
guys respond to some of my videos I post, and one guy, and I ended up private messaging, but he was like, if somebody gets close enough to punch me, my aim was bad. So I'm like, you probably don't want to put that like on social media to let people know you're just going to shoot them in court. But why don't you come out to the house and test out that theory? And of course, all the other excuses came out after that.
Yep.
But
Yeah, and I hear you all the time. Mention stuff like that, Cliff, or read it from your post. And I think one of the posts that you fairly recently made me laugh was social media is for guys that comment on other people's videos but don't have any videos up themselves.
oh yeah, it's one of those deals. It's like, a lot of people, I don't know, other people, trainers, we have these conversations about like, so and so posted negative comments, and I'm like, it's not a negative comment, it's just an uneducated comment because they don't train.
Yep.
I mean, it seems negative, but it's really not negative. It's just uneducated because they don't train, but they still feel like they have to voice an opinion for whatever reason.
Yeah, and you're mature about it.
they own a gun, and they own a gun, or maybe they've got a collection of all different types of guns, and they've got some testosterone, and that means that they're going to comment on your stuff that's legit training and would never ever show up. We need to be careful. We don't want to be mean to people, but it is just funny. And it's a shame that more people don't getting into novel training, because it's just amazing how much they could learn, and if they had an open mind, how much fun the rest of their life is going to be from that course.
Oh, it's so much of this training. I mean, all combatives training. I mean, be it jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, whatever. I mean, it's life skills. It's not only self-defense skills, but to me, like, I still, I do Muay Thai and jits, pretty much every day of the week, and that's like my yoga with my injuries. It's not about really just for self-defense. It's health. It's everything.
On the friends that you make, and in the tougher training, again, mentioning the people that are going to come to your training, they're definitely going to be some cool dudes, because they've self-selected themselves into something that would scare most people away. And I'll tell you what, I'm scared, but it sounds like something I want to do.
Well, it's so funny too. So when I started doing the classes out here at the house, it's like I was talking to John Valentine and stuff, and it's just trying to build a community through combatives. My wife, she's a pretty high-end cook, and guys will come out here and train, and she makes a pretty good, decent 5-star lunch. That's pretty much the highlight of all the training out here. Is the training was okay, but lunch was phenomenal. So I mean, we're trying to build a community through combatives, and it's just some really good people that come through in the training.
Well, how? Let me ask. How close are you to Dallas?
Geez, I want to say maybe 3 hours, 3.5 hours, depending on which route you take.
North, south, etc. I guess it couldn't be north, but
yeah, we're outside of San Antonio, about an hour.
Okay, but either way, that's a decent drive. That's an okay drive for me. So, Eric, you need to come over here and we'll go.
Oh, absolutely. How close are you to KR training? Do you know?
He's in Bastrop, so it depends on the section of 35 that giving day to get there, but usually about an hour and 10.
See, so we could probably set up both training events, or Aaron, maybe in April when we're taking Range Masters Advanced class, maybe we can try to fit one of Cliff's courses in at that point.
I'm doing that 2-day course in Alabama in March too. You guys are, more than invited to come out to that.
If in Alabama, shoot, that's I'm out in North Carolina now. Maybe, I could possibly drive there in March. That'd be awesome. All right, let's go ahead and talk about one of our awesome sponsors, Tenacor. Tenacor continues to innovate with pressure-tested, purpose-driven gear, from holsters to mag pouches, like one of our favorite holsters, the Khartoum 3, which is an AIWB and OWB, depending on how you set it up. The Abdo AIWB mag pouch, which I was just wearing this afternoon at dinner. And now their new, finally released Zero belt. This one-of-a-kind belt is made of solid military-grade webbing, but isn't overly stiff or over-engineered. It's intended to be comfortable, yet support your carry gear. One other unique attribute is the buckle feeds the tail under the opposite webbing, providing infinite adjustments as all purpose-built carry belts should. If you're interested in the Zero belt or any of the mentioned products, visit tenacore.com and use EVO 2021 at checkout for 10% off. You just had an awesome weekend with Craig Douglas, Guy, and you mentioned John Valentine. Mm-hmm. Did you not?
Yeah, I mean, it was an awesome weekend. I did my first ECQC back in like 2008. So after being a student for a lot of years now, the last few years, I'm very humble. I get to actually help AI ECQC courses with Craig. So it's cool. Really cool seeing the material from a student and now seeing it from like a coach's perspective, because you really see like Chris Otter talks about like train sport but think street. So you watching people in the EVOs, you really see what sport techniques work in like those type of scenarios. And then and you see a lot of guys like one of my students that come out here regularly. He's a local cop in a neighboring county, but he's a blue belt. But we've been working weapons-based grappling for a few years now. And as a blue belt, he at these like ECQC and similar classes, he's dominating black and brown, brown belts, because they don't really train a lot of weapons-based grappling. It's a different world. It's pretty interesting to see.
It is absolutely interesting to see. My first ECQC was in 2010, and not as much as you, because there's a lot of time, 2 years that Craig evolved, no doubt. Mm-hmm. But Aaron has seen it too. Aaron's multi-time alum over the last 5 years, 6 years. Now, yeah, it's like probably the last 7, Aaron. Probably.
Yeah.
But getting to see Craig evolve and refine his coursework is definitely demonstrable. And I've seen that as well, because even back then in 2010, there wasn't a lot of people that had jiu-jitsu in that 2010. Now, fast forward, it's like half the class, or excuse me, not half, more than half the class has some solid jiu-jitsu. But it is also, like you stated, it's interesting to see a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner that's never been in a weapons-based environment have a tough time against somebody that just has some decent experience in it. So, yeah.
I mean, it's pretty, like Craig and I, we laugh about it, at the end of the day, because like in 2008 or 6, whatever it was, I mean, it was just a Fight Club weekend. And seeing how the material has evolved and how Craig, as a instructor, presents the material as involved is very impressive in its own right.
Well, absolutely.
Now, what it seems too, and we've talked with Craig about this, but would you agree that it's also been an evolution of the student base?
I think so, to somewhat. I mean, because now people, maybe because of social media, it's getting out there, but I think you're getting students that are more serious about their personal protection. I mean, the writing's on the wall. I mean, it's not, I think we're in for some rough times in the future, but I think people are starting to realize, paying attention a little more to what's happening, and they realize it's just something, to complete their self-protection skill set.
Well, Cliff, just this last year, 30% increase in murder rate. Crime is going drastically up, and we know that some, not to get on politics again, but it's there's a causation from not prosecuting violent crime, not prosecuting some of the violence in the streets the last 2 years, and it's gradually going to get into the lexicon, into the criminal base, that hey, they can get away with violent crime. So I think you're right, and there's more to it than just that. But we certainly, I think, are looking at some tough times crime wise.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, as far as the Christmas season comes up, my wife's her and her mom that we take care of, they're doing all their shopping online, just because, it's like, why would I want to go expose myself to the potential of, like, one of those mob shoplifting thefts? It's just not worth putting, it's like, don't go to stupid places and, do stupid stuff when you can sit at home and accomplish the mission. Doesn't make any sense.
Which, Cliff, you're right. We have to look at that as doing stupid things now, right? It is a stupid thing to go into malls these days with the criminal element out there that has no reason to believe they're going to pay for their crime.
Especially in San Francisco. Don't go to a mall in San Francisco. Just FYI.
Yeah, wherever the prosecution don't support penalties for crime, just do your shopping at home.
Hey, guys, did you, on that, a little tangent, did you guys hear about a month or so ago that in Chicago there were two gangbanger guys that shot at each other, and I believe one of them died, and they didn't prosecute him because they called it a mutual combatant.
Self-defense. Yep.
Yeah, freaking weird, but okay.
Excuse me. Sorry for the audience that I didn't say it at the beginning. I'm coming off of a sinus infection. So, bummer, but, I'm feeling pretty good. I only missed a few days off the mats, so it's not too bad. But with that said, Cliff, maybe start to segue into a slightly different, still on the same subject, and Aaron will likely have a follow-up question, is the combatives with long guns in close quarters or zero feet. Would you hit on that and kind of talk about how you implement that training?
Yeah, the basically EDC with long guns, that really, I started that program, probably 20 years ago, in the military, and traveling, training pretty high in military units. And then you see everybody, like, the uptick in sales of, the AR platforms and stuff like that. But it's like, everybody talks about using it as like a home defense weapon, but it's like, okay, you have a long gun in your hand, you use it as a home defense weapon, but what if you have to put hands on the person? Most people, they don't think about, I have this tool in my hand, but maybe the person doesn't need to be shot. I need to put hands on them. How am I going to control this weapon system if I have to go hands-on? And working with some military units, you see guys that don't train it, they go to put hands on, and they're getting a buttstock driven through their teeth when they try to put the guy on the ground. So it's something you have to learn. Your close quarter tools, like your elbows, stuff like that, kind of like a semi-clinch type position, while one hand stays on the weapon, and just how to move people to do better threat assessments. I mean, you got potentially, we did search warrants in LA where as soon as you breach the door, there's a guy standing there. You got to know how to move that individual out of the way to determine if he's a shoot or no shoot. So, you just can't breach a door and, just crank off a round, which a lot of people nowadays seems like they believe they can if they're in a house. But, it could be, the drunk neighbor kid that just got lost or something. It's like, if you don't have the room, you got to know how to put hands on somebody and create that space to do a better threat assessment. And even training some SWAT guys recently, it's like when they do stuff, it's all shoot scenarios. They don't ever talk about, even if they shoot the guy, they still got to take him into custody. It's like, how are we going to do that with a long gun in their hand? And that's something that's not really talked about.
Well, Cliff, I think the moral of the story is you hit it on the head. The AR-15, well, just specifically that weapon system, is the most popular rifle in the United States, and it's grown in exponential numbers in just the last 10 years. And that is something that we all have to be mindful of. I have a minor background in the use of a long gun in close quarters, but I definitely need to work on it. And I think with our conversations with Craig the last time we had him on, that's on the top of my list this next year to get into, either yours, Craig's, or both. And I think Aaron would agree with that as well.
100%. And what I'm thinking of is it seems like it would be fairly difficult to create that where it could be safe to have a solid training experience, but like you said, have everybody leave with their teeth.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. But it's like, even my wife, I mean, when I travel for classes, I mean, she has her own M4 platform. That's her home defense gun. But I mean, she's, I ran her doing, movement through the house and all kinds of stuff with the UTM bolt, and me and geared it, it was kind of difficult getting her to actually shoot me with paint rounds, but she was like, I'd rather go shoot the neighbor's kid or something, put him in a suit. But yeah, it's like, you gotta, if that's the tool they plan on using, they gotta train for the context that they're going to be using it.
Well, Cliff, a little tongue in cheek here. So you mean that you didn't give her a little pink 380?
Oh no, she has that. Like she has a little Glock 42 she carries for her every day, but home defense, it's an M4. So
well, and I'm not necessarily commenting on the 380 itself. Aaron has a 42, which
you guys are making me feel small over here.
What I actually mean by that is that so it sounds to me like her main defense weapon in the house is an AR. And instead of worrying about, okay, hey, little lady, I want to give you this little cute gun here. And the reason I say that is because we know that the AR platform is very easy for people to shoot, accurate, continuity of fire, and I just think that it's misunderstood that it should be a top home defense, and I think it's becoming.
It's like I told her too. It's like, you hear, the thump in the night, just set up on the far side of the bed from the door and use the edge of the bed as a rifle rest, and just put that red dot from the EOTech center mass in the middle of the door. Just aim 2 inches high because of the ballistics in the round, and you'll hit where you want. So
hey, that's one of our favorite ambush scenario suggestions and training that we like to push people to as well.
Just let them go through that. Yeah, just let them go through that funnel. No reason in going and hunting them down.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they know you're in the house and you're their gold, just set up on the far side of the bed, use the edge of the bed as a rifle rest, and just put the phone on 911 speaker, and so they can get the commands recorded for 911 for court purposes, and 77 grain Black Hills going, probably 5 feet. It's going to do some damage.
Well, and that's what I was going to say earlier is,
go ahead, Aaron.
Not only is that rifle or carbine easier to point and control for almost anybody, it's way more effective than that 380 or that 9mm or, God forbid, God's caliber 45.
Yep.
Right. But yeah, I digress. But that's why it really ticks me off when someone says I don't need an AR-15, because I I do believe that you could argue whether a 12 gauge with the proper loads versus an AR, which one is better or more effective. That's an argument. I think there's valid reasons on valid cons and pros on both
Well,
sides. But man,
she's like, I have a Benelli M4 and she prefers the AR because of the weight difference and the ease of shooting. So
and that's why, I mean, it makes me mad because I feel like, I mean, that literally is my ultimate choice for home defense. But then, having you on, Cliff, you're making me feel bad. But I take action. Sounds like I need to get in some training with that rifle in a clinch and close quarters environment. Man, I'm excited to have you on here because I'm hearing a lot of stuff that I really need to get up to speed on, or at least get my feet wet in.
yeah, I'm looking forward to trying to get to Craig's rifle class too, hopefully next year. So
Maybe we can take it together.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the way I look at it, guys, if and gals, they're paying good money, so I try to bring them the most current information that I can. So I'm always training. I train way more than I teach.
Same here.
That sounds freaking fun. We'd like to take a moment to talk about another one of our awesome sponsors, which is Origin USA. Now, besides making the best jiu-jitsu gis available, they also have high-quality supplements, and I just wanted to focus on a couple here. For one thing, my new favorite that we've gotten from them, and you can see this, any of the viewers that are watching video, we're playing with some video right now. These Jocko greens, I finally got some of these in, man. It's 20 essential superfoods, and it's full of organic fruits and vegetables. And I don't know how many are like me out there, but I definitely need help with my fruits and vegetables. I don't get enough, but it's full of probiotics and to help your digestion system. And I'll tell you what, with all of the vitamins and minerals and I mean, just long list of amazing fruits and vegetables, that also has, it also tastes great. So I was surprised. I've had some green juices, green drinks multiple times, and some of them are pretty good. But man, this is the best I've tasted so far. It's the pineapple coconut flavor, and I like it the best. Anyone that hasn't seen that should try it out. And also, here, this is pretty cool. They now have the Warrior Kid milk protein drinks, which are formulated for kids. Now, it's for everything that they need, like vitamins, electrolytes, calcium, and it's also, of course, the basis is that wonderful grass-fed protein that's in the adult milk formulas. It comes in 2 flavors, chocolate and strawberry. And what I thought about this when I was looking at this is that, boy, wouldn't it be awesome if Ralphie had milk instead of Ovaltine? He might not have gotten ticked off about the commercial, because he would have been excited to read, "Be sure and drink your milk protein."
That's great, man.
That's a terrible joke, but
man, that milk is delicious. Again, I've mentioned this before. I've taken a lot of protein drinks over the years. Back when I was in my early 20s, getting my lift on with good old Rob Garrett, and I used to think those things tasted good. I don't know what I was thinking, because man, I've went back and used them when I've been overseas, when I was out of milk waiting on an order, and man, I was like, these taste like garbage. But that milk, man, if I need a snack at night, that's what I try to hit up. I'm not perfect about that myself, but usually I'm good about using that as a snack.
Now, if you would like to try anything out that Origin offers, and of course that list is huge, go and check out their website at originusa.com. And if there's anything you want to pick up, make sure you go to our blog page or the show notes where you can find our affiliate links for Origin. And then at checkout, use EvoSec10. Well, so that brings us to a current event that most people are aware of. The Kyle Rittenhouse verdict came out, and that he was, I think on our last show we said he was acquitted, but he was not acquitted. He was found not guilty. which is way better
Way
actually
better,
than an
yeah.
acquittal. So now, what are your thoughts on, that's one of the few or maybe the only real life videos of a civilian using a carbine in an enclosed or, just, 0 to 3 feet distance. What are your thoughts on that whole situation? Because we have the video and we know how it went down.
Yeah, I mean,
Could you come on that?
I could be wrong, but I highly suspect that kid had some kind of training from somebody. I really doubt he showed up to the car lot there and some guys like, here, hold this and intimidate others with it. His trigger discipline and everything else, it seems like he's definitely has some training with it. But that's the cool thing about that platform. When he went down in that seating position, just tuck the stock underneath your arm and brace it against the ground. I mean, it's kind of the same thing when you're doing grounded pistol. Somebody's there like within your guard, Craig talks about it, you're still within that 2 arms reach. So, just tuck the stock under there. And because at that angle, you're still putting that front sight in your line of sight. I think it was,
Yeah.
it really, to me, it really showed how valuable and easy that platform is to use. It's like all you gotta do is have a little bit of training, and it's not that hard to protect that weapon. I mean, it might have been different if they got hands on it. That could have been a different story, but keeping them at that 2 arms reach, he did outstanding. I mean, for a 17-year-old kid,
We both
That's
agree.
neat. And
you know.
yeah, and I'll tell you, I caught a little bit of an interview of him, and right off the bat, guys, he's not a normal 17-year-old kid. He's pretty intelligent.
Yeah.
His vocabulary and his articulation of several things. I was actually surprised because I hadn't really ever heard him talk except for a little bit of the trial. But it's fun to get to talk about this because it's amazing, literally just right down the middle, who believes he was justified and who believes he should be rotting in jail.
Well, and I'd like to comment on Kyle and some of what he executed, and I also heard him mention this in an interview. It was kind of funny listening to the prosecutor and or at least the excuse me, the prosecution try to use that. He re-racked his rifle as it was some kind of sinister intent. It made his intent worse that he re-racked his rifle when, again, he didn't re-rack it. And he even mentioned, he's like, my bolt was out of battery and I hit the forward assist.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
It's so funny too. It's like if a 17-year-old can, kill 2 out of 3, and they're talking about those protesters talking about a civil war. Like, if a 17-year-old can do that, they don't want to see what like real operators can do.
Absolutely.
That's the scary part.
Well, Cliff, that's why they don't want it in our hands. They don't want an armed citizenry with the millions of AR-15s that we have, because there's a high percentage of us that are veterans and civilians like Aaron sitting across the way from us that has plenty of training with it. And that's a definite free populace in that setting for sure.
Well, they said there's more retired former special operations dudes in this area where I live in than in Fort Bragg.
Oh, really? Interesting. Well, I don't know if you've heard me mention on the show recently, but I've got my next door neighbor is 18 series SF. Right down the road, an ODA team commander or team leader. Right next door to the next door neighbor has a former 18 Echo comm sergeant SF, and down the street another. I've got like 5 dudes on my street. I've got a pretty decent fire team plus here on this
wow.
street. So
That's awesome. That's really cool.
and a couple of them I train with already. So it's been pretty cool.
That's badass. Very cool.
Well, what we would like to know, so what is your biggest passion that you train? What is your biggest passion among the training that you offer?
Man, I really have to say, like all my classes I have, because like all my courses I teach are broken down into 4 distinct blocks. So you know at the end of the day what you need to work on and how to set up your own training course. But I think the biggest thing that I teach that I try to get across to people is like all my classes involve chest seals, tourniquet applications. Uh, that's kind of the biggest thing. I mean, out here, I live in very rural area. I rolled into 2 head-on collisions that required me to shut down a highway and set up life flight. Uh, just 3 weeks ago, coming from training on the main highway, coming from San Antonio, motorcycle got taken out by a tow truck. I was the only one that stopped with medical gear. So yeah, I think pushing the medical side of stuff, and I do a lot of not a lot, but I do several drills throughout the day where time tourniquet applications. So you do like kind of like a force on force, and then I use a shot timer set for 19 seconds. So when the timer goes off, fight's over, but you got to put a tourniquet on whatever body part, and it kind of induces stress because you're already exhausted from like your evo, and then now you got to figure out how to put a tourniquet on. And a lot of times I'll do it with you can only use one hand or whatever because everybody practices in a perfect environment with 2 hands. So I think besides fitness, like pushing the medical side uh, is probably like the big things that I try to push the most because that's what I think you're probably going to use more. Fitness is this life longevity, and medical is, I mean, something that you have way more. Heck, I was in Walmart last year and saw a guy, elderly guy, in one of those little electric shopping carts having a stroke. Everybody's just walking by him, but I recognized him having a stroke, called 911, and, as far as I know, they got him to the hospital on time. But, you don't have to get an EMT, but I tell people if you have time, get as much medical knowledge as you can.
No, that's a good answer.
great.
For sure. That you're most definitely way more likely to use some basic medical emergency medicine than using your gun. It's just a demonstrable fact.
Well, yeah, even before you even put hands on people, you have way more chances of using medical skills. Just recognizing people. Well, I live in this is a big retirement area, but even recognizing elderly, like in respiratory distress, how do what do you do for that? It's like being able to recognize a medical situation before it becomes an emergency. To me, that's like your feel good of the day, basically. When you can help somebody out like that, and everybody else is just walking by, like, I wonder what's wrong with that person. So,
Well,
yeah,
great,
medical is huge.
great answer, Cliff.
Excellent.
Now, Cliff, we're kind of getting long in the tooth here, and we got a couple more questions, but we would be remiss if we did not ask you about maybe a couple of very important lessons learned in your time in Force Recon in the Marine Corps.
I say the 3 biggest things that I got out of the military is sustainability, learn how to be self-sustained. Everybody's talking about like food shortages and stuff. And heck, I already put like 4 deer in the freezer this year and processed them, from field to table. It's like, so, being able to self-sustain, fitness is huge. Takeaway, especially from that kind of environment. And so fitness, sustainability, and survivability, they teach you how to be thinkers before doers. And God, I really can't think of anything that could happen that I don't really can't figure out a plan for. And that's my biggest takeaway from the military is, how to self-sustain when, whatever collapses. And, survivability doesn't matter. It's funny because we had that big snowmageddon here in February, and you had all these guys, these big four-wheel drive trucks. They couldn't leave the house because they don't know how to like drive a truck in a bad weather. I mean, it was amazing. Like we were going out, picking up neighbors and bringing them back to the house because we had generators and stuff. Like we were always been prepared for it. It's like just learning like basic survival skills, sustainability and stuff.
Well,
go ahead, Aaron.
Cliff, now, so I'm assuming you have a plan when the toilet paper zombies start roaming up your street.
Oh, dude, let's just go outside with a garden hose. So, what do you need toilet paper for? I live in the country for a reason. I don't need toilet paper. I got a garden hose and a well.
Awesome.
Well, what I was going to say, Cliff, again, a lot of people, when we ask a question like that, are probably expecting some kind of fascinating war story. But I love your answers because those are the practical. Those are really awesome practical responses. That's good stuff, brother.
What I'm kind of bummed about is, he's made me think of so many things that I'm just majorly unprepared for. I'm kind of upset. So just
yeah,
I'm kidding. Of course, I hope a lot of people have the same reaction and not actually feel bad about it. But man, I was real glad. I mean, this whole time hearing the stuff that you offer and the majorly, let's just put it this way, off kilter type of training that you do, and you can tell you really care about the good and the important stuff. The guns and even we could even say the jiu-jitsu stuff, it's all sexy and we're driven to go do that stuff. And again, it's a lifestyle, but man, people really just, I think that you said you offer training to a lot of people, and for some reason, a lot of them don't want to show up, man. I wish I lived in your town.
Well, yeah, it's like I tell all the law enforcement guys know. It's like I just had one kid drive from Houston. It's like a 3-hour drive, so I gave him 6 hours of free training. Like whatever your drive is, I'll double the drive time. I don't charge people to come out here, especially law enforcement.
That's good of you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna push your name out to as many people as we can, and
I appreciate it.
Especially folks that are fairly close, but anybody that can get to your location, especially law enforcement. We care about our men and women in blue, and we're tired of them. Number one, being bashed in the media. Number two, we're also tired of seeing them get manhandled by thug criminals. And because they are not provided the proper training, and let's face it, some of them don't seek the training. So we'd like to bridge that gap.
Yeah, that's more like it because every place has training available from somebody. They just don't take advantage of it. I don't get it. So, it's like they'd rather be embarrassed on YouTube than get embarrassed by a buddy.
Yep.
I never understand that.
Good way to put it. And I'll just say it this way for folks in the audience, especially if we have, and I know we have plenty of law enforcement officers, they are likely folks that think like we do. So probably, again, not a lot in our audience that don't already believe the way that we espouse of the training modalities. But what I'll say to the audience members out there is I've done a lot of this scenario-based training over the years. I've put myself through very uncomfortable situations. Every time I'm in an Evo, I have that trepidation, and sometimes you're amped up, a little bit of fear going sometimes. I mean, especially in the beginning of training in that. You have to welcome that. So folks out there that have not experienced training, you're going to have to face that. And frankly, I look at it sometimes, and I know Aaron has spoke on this too, is that once you face that fear and you get through it, man, it just makes you harder. And
I believe that most people man, you can look around my room. I'm a guitar player. I'm an accountant. I'm not a snake eater whatsoever. I can shoot a bit. I can do a little bit of jiu-jitsu. I care about what's going on around me and my family. But man, I think that most people that don't show up, if they would just do it once, and once they get through that first tough situation, it may change their lives, and they're going to do it from now on, because that's what happened to me. I brushed it off every time Eric would talk to me about it. Frankly, I didn't have the nuts enough to do it. I finally just gave in. And I freaking love it.
Well, it's like I tell people, it's like everybody has somebody they're responsible for. It's like my wife depends on me, to get home. So I need to stay, physically fit, so I can move her from point A to B if I need to. But I also have to have the skill set to keep her safe. You know what I mean? That's a role of a man. I just tell people, and it goes back to something I learned as a 19-year-old kid going to recon. You just embrace the suck and suffer in silence. Get to training.
Awesome.
Well said. Well, Aaron, I think we got into your favorite question.
Well, this is actually the most important question on the show. So, Cliff, what are your 3 favorite bands and or favorite musical artists?
Oh man, that's a tough one, man. I was thinking about that all day, but it's like when I think of that question, I really think about what gives me the best memories. So for me, I'd have to say like the top 3 is probably all old school country. I had a 1967 Chevy pickup truck. 3 on the Tree, listen to Johnny Cash on 8-track, driving around with my cousins, drinking a case of Coors Light, trying to pick up girls. God, and of course, holding a light for my dad, working on a car. He was a big Patsy Cline fan, so that's some awesome memories with my dad. That's what I pretty much tell people. That's why I have pretty much no feelings, because I had to hold a light for my dad a lot working on cars. And then, God, man, probably another one, a great one, memories is the Oak Ridge Boys. My mom used to dance around the kitchen to the Oak Ridge Boys growing up. But, then again, there's, another great memory is listening to Van Halen around the fire with the team in Iraq, the trips over there. But I tell you who's awesome. Last year, my wife and I, right before they shut down Houston for COVID, we went to see the Eagles play. And
cool.
Man, Joe Wash, that's probably about the coolest granddad I know, man. He's still getting after it. So
awesome, man. Killer answers. And the fact that you preface it by where you get your greatest memories from. I'll tell you what, I play music because of the emotional attachment to all the music that I love. And for me, I feel it's amazing. You don't meet very many people that don't have that visceral feeling about music, but they usually just can't articulate it like that.
Yeah. I listen to all kinds of, it depends what I'm doing like when I was working, getting home like at 3:00 in the morning from, working narcotics or whatever. I would put on my noise canceling headphones because I had to sleep during the day and turn on some Bach or Beethoven. I mean, I listened to a wide variety of stuff, but when I get asked about music or stuff, it's usually about like what makes me like, kind of think about some shenanigans I got into back in the day. So,
And it takes you back there for a little
yep.
bit. Sometimes you can even smell what was going on.
Oh yeah.
Seriously, I mean,
Yep.
so that's
Definitely.
awesome.
Definitely. So,
Yeah, good answers, Cliff. I dig it.
and
Makes
I
me think
appreciate
about some of my memories back in the day. This
it.
period between 19 and 21 that
Oh,
I got a little crazy for a little while.
oh, it's like, how did I ever make it to 54?
Yeah, good times. Well,
Oh, definitely.
well, Cliff, listen, brother, I think we've taken enough of your time. One of the things that's important to us is when we have a guest like you on our show, we hope that it's not the last, and we'd love to have you back multiple times.
Awesome. Always very humbled by being asked to be here, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, we're humbled that you would like to have our company, so we appreciate your support and what you're doing for law enforcement, military, and guys like us. It's very important, and we really look forward to training with you sometime very soon.
Yeah, let's
And,
make it
and
happen.
before we let you go, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, Hill Country. I'm pretty much on Instagram, and I'm not a content creator. To me, that's kind of ruining training in a way. But yeah, I'm on Instagram, Hill Country Combatives, also Cliff Byerly. I have two different pages on Instagram, and then I have Hill Country Combatives page, and then I have a private Hill Country Combatives group for law enforcement only. So that's probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Well, Cliff, I'll throw all that into our show notes for our
Perfect.
audience members, so we'll
Yeah,
make that happen.
Great.
very
Well,
cool.
fun time, Cliff, and thank you from me. It's been nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Oh, I appreciate it. Likewise. Great meeting you guys.
Take care, brother. Good evening. Well, Aaron, I think it's that time for accountability. I'll just go ahead and jump in here. I have to admit, man, I've had an awesome week for jiu-jitsu. With my busy work schedule and even with EvoSec, it's hard for me to get any more than 2 or 3 jiu-jitsu workouts in a week. Man, sometimes it's only once because of work. That hasn't happened as much in recent weeks, but it does happen. But man, this week I was able to hit up 4 jiu-jitsu workouts. And one of the reasons is because a good buddy, newer buddy of mine, named Adam, started a Wednesday morning 6 a.m. or as us in the military 0600 drilling class. And man, I showed up there. There was 4 of us, and man, it was incredible to get that jiu-jitsu workout done early. I'm hoping that maybe they'll think about doing maybe one more during the week because, man, I love getting my workouts done in the morning because then the day can't take that away from me. But this week, our instructor, Lee, had some awesome half guard sequences. And for our audience members that are maybe either newer to jiu-jitsu or may not train in jiu-jitsu, half guard is something that I haven't been really crazy about up until, I don't know, the last couple of years. And the truth is that half guard is a super important skill, not just for everybody, but especially for folks that are getting older. It's a good control position. It's something that's possibly a good place for most folks to start their sweeps from, and just if you develop like a 3-pronged approach, to use Mike Brown's phrase, I think he gave attribution to Paul Sharp on that. When you develop a good strategy from half guard, man, that's just a great place to develop. So I was kind of pumped about that. And then on Sunday, I went to open mat and went there early. My buddy Chris and I worked on, of all things, the cross collar choke. And everybody says, "Hey, yeah, that's a white belt technique." Well, there's an argument to that, but the reality is that the cross collar choke from guard or the mount happens all the way up through black belt in competition. The difference is that it's easy to defend, but Chris and I worked on John Danaher's version, and it enables some methodologies that are really good in when somebody's hand fighting and whatnot. He espouses a dilemma attack, and then also, which is effectively you start a sweep. If they're defending real effectively, and the sweep itself, say a butterfly sweep, for example, creates a dilemma. They either post their hands, and then you're able to sink the choke in, or if they just keep defending, then you sweep them and then finish the choke from the mount. So it's kind of a cool approach to it. And then secondly is using Kazushi, which is off balancing the person, using I would call it pushing with your foot on their knee to get them to post, and then it creates the space and opportunity to sink the choke. And not to mention is the details about how setting the choking hand and the finishing hand. And there's traditional 3 ways to do it, but just his methodologies just make so much more clear on how to do it. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Didn't mean to belabor on that too much, but that was a good aspect of jiu-jitsu this week, and then got some awesome rolls in. So
excellent.
So Aaron, and the one thing that I've really backed off on, I've talked about, this is mainly because I'm focusing on my jiu-jitsu right now, is my shooting. But I did get some good dry fire in, and I decided that I was going to come up with a 5-minute routine. And that 5-minute routine essentially includes 10 very slow, precise presses of the trigger, several draws for speed on the clock. Also, using the accelerated press and the controlled press methods that Mike Seeklander espouses. Also using my timer to initiate that at speed, and then of course doing speed reloads and emergency reloads, malfunction clearance, just a couple of those. And then a sequence of transitions using my scaled down targets. It only takes about 5 minutes, but if I'm in a hurry and I knock out that whole thing, man, I've covered essentially everything that I would need to do with a pistol. So,
man, I should have taken notes on that.
Well, Aaron, I'll get it to you.
You need to text that to me.
I'll put it in a document, and I'll say it's just on written notes right now, but I'll put it in a document and send it to you.
Oh, man, just shoot me a picture of it, man.
Okay, cool. We'll do, man.
I like handwriting.
Yeah, me too, man. The written word, man, it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. As far as education this week or reading, man, I finished up Brad Thor's Black Ice, real good novel. Of course, I'm forgetting who I heard. Oh, it was Jack Carr said it this way. Instead of fiction, he calls it faction. So there's a lot of facts that you can actually learn in these books, and so I thought that was kind of cool way of thinking about it. I also finished up some readings from my Hillsdale College Great Books class, so it was my education for the week. But man, I think that does it for me. Aaron, what you got?
Okay, well, last week I started getting back into the swing of things. I think I mentioned on the last show that I kind of been being a little lazy, just to be frank. But I mean, I had semi reasons to slow down a bit, but I kind of took it too far. So last week I had one 30-minute cardio session on my stationary bike. And then I went to Jiu Jitsu for the first time since getting my combatives belt. I went to my first master cycle, which is, the level after you get out of the combatives program
Awesome,
for Gracie's curriculum. Yeah, it felt great to be back. But on top of that, I dry fired every day last week except for one day. And those usually were fairly long, 15 to 30 minutes each, because I had an IDPA match this weekend. So I was kind of prepping for that, and kind of excited to run a match with my $6,000 bionic eyes. So which went really well. I can say this real quick, that before I could not see the perforations in IDPA targets, once you got out past about 7 yards. Now I can see them pretty far out, and I can see my hits on the targets as they hit, which I haven't been able to do that in a long time. I was pretty stoked about that.
That's awesome, man.
I did right before that. I went to the range on Friday on my lunch hour, and I re-zeroed my optic because I had it zeroed for those really nice Syntec match rounds for the Tom Gibbons class. I thought, I was going to take every advantage I can get. I'm going to use match rounds.
Oh, that's how you gain those 2 points on me. I'm just kidding, Aaron.
Maybe so.
No, bro, I'm just absolutely kidding, bro. You just freaking outshot me. That's all.
Well, man, I'm honored to have been able to do that for sure.
I'm honored you
like
did.
I said, thanks, man. Well, and then I just ran through the 5x5 a few times, because it was going to kind of get me geared up for a few kind of IDPA-ish kind of shooting. And so I went to the match on Saturday, and I actually took second place in carry optics.
Congrats, man. I saw that. That was awesome.
Man, I was pretty stoked about that. Now, not that I'm at all sour grapes, because I really dig that, but I did hit a no shoot, and that adds freaking 5 seconds to your time. If I didn't hit that, I would have been first.
Nice.
But hey, it was fun. Always awesome to compete and get out there with like-minded people, really cool people. I met a couple of new shooters that were out there that were officers, and man, they were getting after it, shooting really well. So shout out to those guys. Now, one thing I want to say about IDPA real quick. I found out today, Eric, John Valentine shared it on his Facebook feed. IDPA has a survey going on. So if you're a member of IDPA, like a lot of us are, log on to your account, and it'll bring up a survey about them introducing appendix carry.
Yeah, man. I saw that you tagged us and the EvoSec page, and I saw that on the way back from dinner, and I was like, man, it's about time. But I'll tell you this, I also, seeing some of the questions, man, I may offend a few people, but it just feels like FUDs are writing some of these questions.
Of course they are. Let's just be, yeah.
So, proper holstering with an appendix rig, you don't muzzle yourself, but you sure as hell muzzle yourself regularly when you're holstering strong side. I'm not saying.
Oh, I see. I was just going to say, I see people at these matches muzzle their hip all the time, and yet we have this rule not to be able to use appendix when probably half the guys there carry appendix every day. Now, what I did, and I agree. So one of the questions was, would you support holstering the gun outside of the pants and then placing it in your pants?
Yeah. So what are we going
when
to
they
do? Are we going to actually load the firearm in a holster and then handle that holster, trying to put it in your belt, which is a much more risky task than just simply safely holstering? Yeah, I saw that's like, what in the world are they thinking?
I definitely checked no on that. That was stupid. But
And Aaron,
and then
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just said on there, it said, what would you suggest to help out in safety if this was introduced? I said, require the people that do it to hit forward when they holster their gun and hold their pistol angled outboard and roll it down flat out until it reaches the holster with the hip forward. They aren't going to muzzle themselves. And then I said, you might even require wedged holsters. Yeah. I don't know if that's a major thing to require, but maybe at least, encourage it. But man, the hip forward and the way you outboard that pistol at an angle out, it's going to be plenty safe.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a new command. Okay, if you are done, go ahead and do the show clear. And well, I won't get into my thought on the pressing the trigger. But anyway, go ahead and show clear and jut your hips forward, muzzle outboard, and safely holster. I mean, to me, that's the way to do it, man.
And then there are a lot of guys on there that were bagging on IDPA. Man, it's not perfect. I know that people that have been in IDPA a long time, they get really pissed about the old guard that have, like you said, FUD kind of rules. But man, it's still a easy way for people to get some trigger time under some pressure and having to solve not hard puzzles, but just solving a few puzzles or solving a few problems with the gun in your hand.
And Aaron, I'm glad that you said that, because I wanted to make sure that I said that, because yes, I said the FUD comment. I don't want to offend any of our listeners, because we likely have some IDPA range officers, so on and so forth. But to me, again, the misunderstanding of that carry system. But at the same time, I want to make sure that people understand IDPA is a great avenue for people to shoot. And frankly, IDPA every single weekend has people that are brand new shooters safely. Of course, they typically got to do a briefing, and probably, and some IDPA clubs actually make you come to what would be called a little class, on how to draw from the holster. But IDPA has people drawing from the holster under pressure that are brand new shooters, and they do it safely weekend after weekend throughout the United States and the world.
And see, and that's another thing. We sure didn't mean to go off on this tangent about IDPA. I know people prefer USPSA. I don't care what you like to shoot. I just haven't tried USPSA.
No, neither have I.
It's just that when we first started competing, 20 years ago, we went to an IDPA match, and I think Mike Brown got us involved with that.
Actually, Aaron, I think no, it was actually Greg. I won't say his last name on the air, but Greg's actually who took us. I don't think Mike was shooting IDPA until maybe a month or so later when we first went.
Okay, now it's kind of coming back to me, but the point is, there's no competition that is going to be tactical. That's one of the complaints that people have about it. Of course, it's not tactical. And the faux, slice in the pie and cover that isn't cover. It's fences. You can see straight through it. But man, you're shooting a bunch of target, varying distances. You've got swinging targets. You've if you do any, like those of us that are fairly serious about it, you do stage prep. You visualize it as you right before you shoot as many times as you can before it's your time. It's good for you.
Aaron,
it's good for the brain. And,
yeah, you hit it on the head just a bit ago. You're shooting under pressure, under peer pressure, under pressure that you place on yourself, and you're shooting a novel stage, and again, I think I can't remember if I mentioned this on the air or if it was just you and I talking, but Jim Cirillo, the famous, essentially gunfighter, man, he spoke about one of the attributes of people that will likely survive a shooting. One of those attributes were competitive shooters. So, yeah, we don't want to make it sound like we're anti-IDPA. As a matter of fact, we're super pro IDPA. I'm just pro competition altogether. So,
well, and pro IP, excuse me, pro. I was going to say pro IPA. I'm pro IPA too.
Yeah, me too. One of my favorite burrs. Yep.
But yeah, we're pro IDPA because it's just what we've had available easy to us, right? But the point is, you can find an IDPA club or a USPSA club probably within an hour drive from you, if you're in a heavy gun state like mine, you've probably got 2 or 3 clubs where you can go on every weekend. Yep. And then, like last weekend, USPSA was the very next day. One of these days, I'm going to try USPSA. It's just I'm used to IDPA.
Well, I'm in the boat where there isn't any IDPA that I found close to me. And IDPA lists all the clubs, so I at least haven't found one yet. But there's a lot of USPSA. So I think I mentioned that before, that's likely what I'm going to end up having to do. And one of my buddies at Jiu Jitsu, he's a police officer, Michael, shout out to him. He's a solid USPSA shooter. And he and I were talking. I'm sure I'm going to end up shooting a match with him. So he's a listener of our show too. So again, big shout out to him as well.
Well, I just wanted to say one more thing about the IDPA issue. I don't want to again offend anybody, but I think some people, if they get too bent out of shape about what the rules are for any of these competitions, man, they're games, right? So don't take it so seriously. Just go out there and do your best. Get better at shooting, get better at, muzzle awareness, all that stuff that competition helps you with, that is actually really important during, higher, more intense, advanced classes that you take.
Well, Aaron, I'll add one more very important point, is that the reason events like, or venues like IDPA are so important, some people don't live in an area where a range even lets you shoot from the holster, or they don't let you shoot at speed. You can only fire 1 shot per second and no drawing from the holster. And so IDPA is a route for people to have that capability, and it does end up becoming a training event for them. So, yeah, just want to make sure I threw that out there.
Good deal. Well, then I'll say one last thing and we'll get off of here. It's funny. A few months ago, I was sinking more trigger finger, and I even talked to Tom Givens about it, and, because he really pushes the pad of the finger. And I said, Tom, I found my dot taught me to put more finger actually to the crease of my finger to get a better trigger pull. And he goes, well, you need to keep doing it then. But then I started doing a little bit more longer range shooting. I noticed that the further you go, I was pulling to the right, and that has to do with more trigger finger.
Yeah, the hooking of the trigger finger, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm back to working on the pad of my trigger finger, and it's been going well. It's just obviously it's gonna. What does it take me 10,000 times to to ingrain that again away from the way I was pulling the trigger? But I also went ahead and to help that out, Eric, I finally found Overwatch Precision. They finally are offering a Gen 5, at least the trigger shoe for the DAT trigger, which is a killer aftermarket trigger.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to put that on there and see if I like that better than the stock trigger shoe. But again, we've said it before, that Gen 5 trigger is a lot better than the Gen 3s we're used to. Man, that's all I got this week. We talk about a lot of stuff, man. Great interview with Cliff. It's been a good show.
Yeah, can't wait to train with Cliff soon. And again, just to mention him, he's also been a huge supporter of our show. I think he said, and may even mentioned it on the interview. Maybe it was pre-show, that he's listened from the beginning. So when we got guys like Cliff, who's doing the work and teaching the dudes that do the work, we definitely are humbled when they're supporting us. So awesome. Great
Most
interview.
Certainly. Yes.
So we're going to return the favor and be a patron in his courses.
Sounds great.
Well, bro, let's call it an evening, man. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your evening with your family.
You too, buddy.
Right,
take it easy.